ends meet. And so I stay home with her in the daytime while he works, and he stays home with her at night while I work. Well, it just did something to my heart to see her. So that night I was campaigning, and this was a very disorganized campaign. We got in just a few weeks before the election, trying to stop Lester Maddox. Our leading candidate dropped out, and it left Lester Maddox as our Democratic candidate, and Jimmy thought we needed Jimmy Carter. So I was campaigning in Swainsboro, Georgia, and found out that Jimmy was going to be there that night. And so I went to this big rally, got in the back of the room. When people started shaking hands with him, I got in line. And I don't know how often you're in receiving lines. It's part of my life. And you will hold out your hand to the next person while you're still talking to this. So Jimmy held out his hand to me when I came to him, and he saw who I was. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I came to see what you're going to do for mentally ill people when you're governor of Georgia." And he said, "We're going to have the best program in the country, and I'm going to put you in charge of it." Well, that was the beginning of my education about mental illnesses, mental disorders, and people who suffer from mental disorders. And he didn't, of course, put me in charge, but he appointed the Governor's Commission to improve service to the mentally and emotionally handicapped, and I was a member of that committee. And I have worked on mental health issues ever since. And I don't like to tell you how long ago that was because it ages me. But that was 1971. I've worked over 30 years on mental health issues. Well, everything has changed since I began. Back then, nobody would mention mental illnesses. We didn't know anything about the brain. Didn't know how to treat people with mental illnesses. Most of the time, they were just kept sedated and out of sight. Today, through research and knowledge of the brain, there are new medications, new treatment methods. Mental illnesses can be diagnosed, they can be treated, and the overwhelming majority of people can lead normal lives, living at home, working, going to school. So it's a really exciting time in the mental health community. I think there's a growing awareness about mental illnesses. We still have a long way to go, but we had the Surgeon General's report, and by the way, Dr. Satcher has just come on my mental health task force, and I'm really excited about that. We had his report, we had the supplemental reports, one on children, one on minorities. We had his call to action to prevent suicide. We had a White House conference on mental health, and now President Bush has established the Freedom Commission on Mental Health. I hope that's really active. We have a long way to go because stigma is still pervasive, but I do think that there's this growing awareness, and I do think that puts a huge responsibility on us to take advantage of that and capitalize on it and work to educate people the true facts about mental illnesses, which most of you who are here tonight have been doing already. But now with events like this one, which are so important to call attention to the issue, and the different things that I really think that maybe our voices are beginning to be heard more than in the past, and I'm excited about that. We do work continuously at the Carter Center to educate people. One of my programs that I'm so proud of, and I think it's the most successful one I ever had, is mental health fellowships for journalists. Since the media has such a great influence on people's opinions and what they think about issues, we felt that it would be good to educate a cadre of journalists who knew the issues, could have some influence with their peers, would write accurately when things happen, and instead of sensationally, which just destroys sometimes everything you work for. It's been so successful. We've been excited about the caliber of people that apply. This is our 5th year, I think. The first year we had the Director of Consumer Reports on TV, who did spots that went across the country. We had the Associate Editor of JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. We We had the bureau chief of Newsweek in Tokyo, who did a great story on mental illnesses, mental health in Japan. One of our new ones this year is William Skane, who's a producer of CBS Evening News and CBS Sunday Morning, and they apply with a subject. We give them $10,000. They work for it. They come and present what they're going to work on, and then they come back at the end of the year and report. They come in between. Some come more than others, but William Skane is working on the mental health of young people because there's so many problems in schools and emotional disturbances of young people and suicide. 10 young people in our country commit suicide every day. Isn't that unbelievable? And one of them, a young man named Joshua Schenck, subject was the severe depression of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln suffered from severe depression most of his life. We in the mental health community know that if you lose a parent or loved one as a small child, you're very vulnerable for depression later in life. Abraham Lincoln lost so many people that he loved. He lost his mother, he lost his favorite sister who took care of him after his mother died. He just lost so many people in his family, and when he was 9 and his brother was 11, his father left them at home alone for 6 months while he went off to find a new wife. Well, there's all kinds of stories. It's been bits and pieces, but it's never been brought together. Now he has a contract to write a book. And I think that's going to help so much with stigma, because if Abraham Lincoln suffered from severe depression and was able to be a great president, then it's all right. It seems to me it would be all right for anybody to say, I have a mental illness, and it's all right for me to have that. I've read part of the book. Joshua came to the White House to interview, to the Carter Center to interview Jimmy and me, but since he couldn't interview Abraham Lincoln. Well, I thought, if I'm not taking too much time, I would tell you a little bit about Cuba. We arrived, me with some trepidation, but it quickly vanished because Castro met us at the airport with a business suit and a handshake instead of a kiss or a bear hug. I could see that photograph going all over the world. But Dr. Julie Richmond, who had been Surgeon General when Jimmy was president, brought me a report that he wrote after he went to Cuba in '78, and Castro had asked him about the mental health system. And so I was really interested. I asked and had on the program that I was going to be briefed on what they were doing about mental health. And when we got to the briefing, it was on mental retardation. They took us to 2 places for working with children with mental retardation. It was really interesting, but I wanted to talk about mental health and see what they were doing. And so I had met at the 2 neuroscientists. We went for a briefing to the Finley Institute, which is where they developed, at the Finley Institute, they have developed the vaccine for meningitis. And working with GlaxoSmithKline, it's the vaccine that goes around the world. They have a tremendous program there. I had met 2 neuroscientists there, so I saw them the last afternoon we were there. They told me that they have 800 psychiatrists in Cuba, plus psychologists. About 10 years ago, they started moving from the big institutions into community service. They have a tremendous health care system. Everybody has total free health care. The people have a great education system. Everybody in the country is literate. If you talk to people in the farmer's market or in the field or anywhere, they're all really interesting because they've had such good education. The system creates so many doctors. And so that has resulted in doctors everywhere. Every community has a family doctor that is responsible for 170 people. And there's a clinic. They have a clinic, and it's in the community, and they live upstairs. And if they keep check with these 170 people. If they don't come in, they go to see them just to check on them, be sure they're all right. They keep in touch with every single